Welcome to Business Talk here on Business Tech with me, Michael Avery, a fresh take on business and life during lockdown and how some of the country's leading companies and business leaders are adapting to operating under the cloud of this pandemic. Executives everywhere really examining and thinking deeply about the contours of the next normal, how they're going to lead their people and their organizations through the next 12 months as the world races to find a vaccine, and what are the scenarios that could possibly unfold. Well, my next guest leads one of the largest IT firms in the country. Dimension Data maintains operations on every inhabited continent. It focuses on services, including IT consulting, technical and support services, and really started out life as an infrastructure business back in the 80s under founder Jeremy Orr. My, how things have changed over the last 30-odd years. The company is the official tech partner of the Tour de France, and in 2010 was fully acquired by Nippon Telegraph and Telephone, NTT. And on the 1st of July last year, we saw all Dimension Data operations, excluding those in the Middle East and Africa, become part of NTT Limited. Grant Bodley, CEO of Dimension Data, welcome to Business Talk. It's always great talking to you, but at a time like this, it's unprecedented in every level. It's probably the most overused word next to "you're on mute" this year. Unprecedented. Just take me back to early March, just before the lockdown was announced. And as an organization, you already going through quite a transformative period with the rebrand and everything else. So you had just sold the campus in December last year. Yep. How did you respond as a management team, knowing that the country was going to go into this hard lockdown?
Michael, morning, and thank you for having me on the show, and morning to all viewers. If we go back to March, we as an organization, we're going through a reset phase in terms of just what does the next 5 years mean for us as an organization. And the key sort of focus areas were how do we make sure we remain relevant in an ever-changing industry. And at the core of everything we do is our clients, and what is it that our clients were asking of us. So come March timeframe, and just prior to that was, if you're operating in South Africa, broad-based Black economic empowerment and B levels are of course a key tenet to being able to trade effectively. So we just concluded a number of transactions to make sure that we remain relevant from a broad-based Black economic empowerment point of view, now having an effective Black ownership of 51%. And a level 2 BE. So that's what you were referencing in terms of sale of the campus. That was part of ensuring we remain appropriately empowered. We've then obviously traded for a number of years. Dimension Data owned 100% of companies such as Bright House, Internet Solutions, Continuity South Africa. And the feedback from our clients is, guys, we want to deal with Dimension Data. You talk about this end-to-end value proposition that you come at me with multiple sort of engagements, different brands, different engagement styles, etc., etc. We've also seen technology converge, and we're starting to compete between the different brands. And so we made a choice to bring all those brands together under Dimension Data, retire the brands of Internet Solutions, Bright House, Continuity South Africa, and just reorganize our assets into 5 new go-to-markets, which we felt would better serve the market and make sure we remain relevant. So a very big change we announced to the market. We were excited about going on it. Our clients were excited about it doing. Staff obviously anxious and nervous, but understood the logic behind it. And then boom, lockdown came and it caught us all by surprise, to be quite honest. We'd all heard of COVID. You talk about it in passages, but would a lockdown really happen? And of course, that did catch us. And that now you've announced to the market, you've announced to the staff this whole restructure. And then this pandemic comes and everyone's basically gone back to work from home. So we did pause for a while to think. After a period of time, we felt that it was important that we continued with that reorganization. First of all, we communicated, staff knew about it. So, for us, we've concluded that entire restructure. Sadly, there were parts of the business where there was duplication, right? You've got 3 brands, 3 marketing teams. You've got multiple finance teams, sales teams, product management teams. We brought them together. So there was an aspect of a Section 189 that has been widely reported on, and we did conclude in August. And then the brands were retired in October. So today we are operating as Dimension Data, 1 people, 1 name. So 1 Dimension Data effectively. It's never an easy process, but certainly from where I sit, the feedback and the response from the market's been overwhelmingly positive.
Mm.
Internally within the organization, I mean, it still takes some time to bed these down. It's all done. I think it's gone as well as I could possibly have hoped for. But, people have got new managers, people are operating with a new business card and email address, and those things take some time to adjust to.
And doing all of this during a pandemic when everyone, as you say, had to go work at home under these very difficult and trying circumstances, if there are lessons that you're going to take from this period from a leadership perspective, I know the one thing that has struck me about organizations in South Africa, as we see quite a big bounce back in activity, is the degree of flexibility that has been displayed by corporate South Africa. What are some of the lessons that you've taken through this period?
Look, I think the first thing is, what's the Charles Darwin saying, adapt or die,
Yeah.
and only those who can adapt will survive. So, I mean, I think we've clearly seen that, humans and organizations are adaptable and resilient. And if it wasn't for technology, I don't think we would have been able to survive this pandemic, because we've obviously globally seen that organizations can work in different styles and remotely and be it from home. So I think, that is a positive. That being said, a couple of lessons that I've certainly taken out of it is work from home for many people up front was quite nice, quite exciting, quite novel. But, we don't appreciate that not everyone has conducive work environment at home. If you're in a one apartment bedroom with 2 or 3 kids, a partner working and all of that, trying to balance that's very difficult. We're certainly seeing, within our organization, a number of staff complaining about mental stress and these types of things because of the pressures of working in, a home environment, not seeing their colleagues and those kind of things. We've opened up and had staff back at the office for a number of months now. And, business is a contact sport in many, many ways. And digital is not contact. So it's, for me, I suppose, if I think it's like playing PlayStation or whatever versus the actual real game, rugby digitally or rugby, in person. And, when I walk around the campus, for example, where I'm based, and I see staff, that just ability to engage is really overwhelming. And for me, when you're going through change is about communication. It's about expect management. It's about allaying fears. And I mean, that was difficult in one way because I couldn't walk the passage and get a temperature sense of how people are feeling or not. And so, a lot of communication from me and my executive team via digital means, media. I did a weekly video update on what was happening in the company, what's happening with the pandemic, what's happening with the economy. So, you just have to adapt. But at the end of the day, I still am a firm believer that there is the workplace is still required. Staff still long for that human interaction. We're a herd species. So, I think we are going to move to more of a hybrid world. But if you're in a collaborative role, I'm strongly in favor of being closer together. You walk down the passage and ask someone, hey, what do you do? What is this? Boom, and it's done in 5 minutes. Whereas when you're in hard lockdown, you're kind of trying to work digitally and see if someone's got availability in their diary, and the productivity goes away in some instances.
Especially if
other jobs and roles, productivity is great.
Especially if you try
culture is massive,
Grant, because and that's what I wanted to understand, because you're going through this rebrand, which is more than just a high level, rebrand. You're actually changing the operating structure of the business, and that requires a cultural shift and change, and that really requires face-to-face interaction. Surely, so how did you manage that?
100%, Michael. I mean, I think for those of you who know Dimension Data and have been exposed to us, I mean, we're a very, very, I always say we're a people business. We just happen to be in the tech sector, So culture is at the core and the heart of everything that we do. And when you are changing, as much as you have an overall company culture, there's always subcultures. So you have these little brand cultures and identities that you need to get through. So, I mean, I think the first thing we knew up front was we needed help. So we brought on consultants in terms of change management to help us. We made sure there was a multitude of surveys. We made sure that there were a multitude of channels for people to engage, with their managers, with HR, with whomever they wanted to. I made sure I was talking to the organization on a weekly basis. And then the minute lockdown opened, and we could get certain parts of the business to work, we certainly did start doing that so that you can enhance aspects of that culture. The rest, we've just had to rely on digital means, to be honest. I mean, I haven't been able to travel to all of our offices, be it to East Africa or the Middle East, for example. So, we've tried our best. I think we've done a reasonably good job. The response from the staff and the feedback in the surveys, has been by and large positive. There are obviously little things and things that fall through the crack, which are difficult to navigate given the fact that we've done it remotely. The upside of doing it remotely, I suppose, if we have to look at both sides of the coins, was, when you go through a 189, the generally people who are impacted, and if they're sitting in the workplace, that negative energy stays there in some ways. With everyone being at home, I suppose that aspect of it maybe made it a little bit easier, but still, when you're so close to these people, and most people have worked at Dimension Data for a long time, you feel that pain. I know personally for myself, it's always the hardest thing you have to do, no matter how many times you can rationalize it and explain it logically to people. It still hurts when a colleague and a friend leaves for no fault of their own.
Yeah, and it's pain that unfortunately needs to happen in the public sector as well. And we're seeing a lot of pushback to it now in the SABC, for example, and it's never nice to see, but it is the operating reality we find ourselves in as a country, and we need to certainly take those difficult decisions. And we'll circle back to that. If you zoom out a little bit and as Data then survey this landscape, the one thing COVID has done is it's accelerated that digital trend. It's been like pouring petrol on an open flame. The digital trend going to the cloud, hybrid kind of architecture and infrastructure was always there. But we've seen how important that is now during a pandemic where we've required this remote working technology. How do you see this influencing the opportunity landscape for Data as we exit and into this new normal?
Absolutely, Michael. I mean, I couldn't have said it better. We absolutely have seen everything being accelerated. We've seen companies appreciate technology more. And certainly in a lot of the conversations I've had with CEOs and CIOs is, it's hard enough to manage your business in a pandemic, let alone worry about some of these technology things. So people reconsidering their sourcing strategies, be it an outsource, a managed service or a cloud service. So we're seeing that, for us, it's accelerating digitization, as you say, and for us is to make sure that we, to my first point, relevance. I think the good part about the change, no matter the fact that it happened, is everything we've done has stood us in good stead given the pandemic. More agility and flexibility, and that as an organization, and new go-to-market value propositions, which help. And I think, with certain of the hyperscalers starting to land in South Africa, that replatforming, application modernization, and move to the cloud is absolutely there. But at the same time, the whole work from home has opened up a whole new opportunity. So how do you enable an enterprise experience at home, with all the security postures that are required? And don't forget, which exacerbated our situation here during the lockdown, there were aspects of load shedding. So how do you bring about UPS type of backup capability? Because to be able to ensure that people can work even during a load shedding experience. So, it's created opportunities for our teams to be very innovative. Our team sort of within 8 weeks, for example, came up with a sort of work from home type of solution, security, UPS, connectivity, et cetera, and it's forced organizations to think differently. And I think it's accelerated decisions that CIOs, CTOs, and CEOs wouldn't have otherwise made in the past. So, there's a lot of opportunity, and we're excited about that. But at the same time, there's other parts that people have held back. People are under significant financial pressure and stress given the pandemic, and so large investments, for example, maybe in a large, ERP rollout or large network refresh, for example, people say, "Ooh, okay, maybe I can sweat these assets a little bit longer. Do I wait another 18 months before?" So as much as there's been incremental growth in certain areas, large-scale projects, people are holding back on that capital expenditure just to sort of see what's going to happen? Is there a second wave? How do we navigate that? Liquidity is the biggest challenge, and cash flow is the biggest challenge for most corporates that we see. And we've got a lot of, you all know what's happened to SAA. You've seen what's happened to EdCon. We know what's happening in the tourism industry, travel. Some of those are clients. And of course, that downstream impact is felt by us. In many ways, we can help them. In other ways, those clients just don't have the money to spend on technology, no matter how much they want to.
Absolutely. And that also means budgeting, planning, forecasting for your own cash flow requirements is increasingly hard to do in an environment where we are so uncertain about whether or not a serious second wave will impact us as we head into the winter of next year. And so very difficult to manage through all of this. You did at the recent investment conference, which is the third investment conference, the government's looking to raise about 1.2 trillion rand, commit and pledge towards investing in South Africa. Just take me through that pledge and what your commitment is to South Africa during a crisis time like this.
Sure, Michael. I mean, we pledged, it was 870 odd million rand for a data center expansion. That's phase one. I mean, the overall sort of investment over the next 18 months will probably near be to 2 billion. At the same time, other things that aren't necessarily called out there, to be remain relevant, one needs to continue to invest. And we're very fortunate to be in a position where we can invest. We've got a parent company that's willing to support us in some of those investments. So be investing in our networks to enable software-defined everything, and these kind of things continues. We've got 14 data centers here in South Africa, and they're at capacity and damn near capacity. And as the world changes, to our earlier conversation, as people start moving towards the cloud and the hybrid environments, resiliency and resilient data centers in particular are a significant opportunity. NTT, our parent company, I think is probably the second or third largest, global data center player. Their biggest clients are the hyperscalers, be it Microsoft, Google, Amazon, and of course, as those companies enter here, there's opportunity for us to potentially have them locate to host in our data centers, not to mention our clients who, nowadays accept that there are, world-class data center facilities, and it's much more effective and affordable in many instances to co-locate or leverage, players such as Dimension Data as opposed to manage their own data centers where they very seldom use the full capacity that's available to them.
See within that lots of opportunity for Dimension Data to play. The president was waxing lyrical about the number of new data centers in the country over the past few weeks. So a very exciting time in that space. As we're running out of time, Grant, just overall your thoughts about where we find ourselves as a country. Obviously, the ratings downgrade recently was pretty much priced in by the market, but still a bitter pill to swallow during a time like this when debt to GDP levels are in the out of the years heading out to 100%. We see these painful decisions that you mentioned earlier of right-sizing certain state-owned enterprises. And there is a lot of concern about whether or not we will go over the fiscal cliff. What are your thoughts on where we are as a country?
No, I mean, I'm with you, Michael. I think we're in a very unsettling position right now. You've referenced the fiscal situation. And, both government and private sector under extreme pressure, and we need to make some decisive decisions here. For me, key to unlocking and stemming this tide is one hand curbing government spend in terms of the wage bill, which they've referenced and kind of committed to doing. On the other hand, is stimulating the economy through investment. And I think the first thing around all of this, be it government investment and or private sector, the first thing is policy certainty. Whilst you haven't got policy certainty, it's going to be very, very difficult for businesses such as ourselves or other global players who may want to invest in this country to make those decisions, because policy certainty is a critical part to building out a business case to justify a particular investment. And whilst there's uncertainty around spectrum per se or land or whatever the case may be, that is going to create uncertainty. I think the other thing that I'm certainly seeing too is, as much as government is committing to a significant amount of investment, I think government's got to make it easier for business to work with it. At the moment, reputational damage. It can be fraught with danger engaging in business, and particularly if you start looking at local government and the like, where you've got coalition governments and you've got elections every 2.5 years. There's a lot of change in there, a lot of different influences and parties, and I'm not sure we as a country and we as businesses learn to navigate managing and operating in a coalition government environment. And as much as we see public sector as a massive opportunity for us, there are also certain anxieties for us, and can you afford to be caught up in political plays and the like, which may cause you reputational damage when, quite frankly, you've done nothing wrong. And so I think, we need to have a lot of clarity and a strong hand and direction around that, so that we can, as private sector, engage confidently with government to bring about the value that all of us as citizens want, be it in service or economic stimulation of the economy. So, if we do pull together and we do make the right decisions, I think there is a chance, but it's going to take strong leadership right now. And from where I sit, I think, it appears to still be quite a lot of tension within the ruling governing party in terms of, which direction needs to be taken. We haven't got time, as far as I'm concerned, to have uncertainty. We need certainty. And all of us, I look at myself as a CEO, I manage, multiple countries on the continent in the Middle East. When you've got $1 to invest, I'm going to go where I think I'm going to get the best return. And quite frankly, right now, there are more attractive countries than South Africa, which is sad because, I'm a proudly South African individual. A large percentage of our employee and our workforce is here. And we're committed to South Africa, don't get me wrong. But it just appears easier to get a return on that investment in some other geographies. Yeah. And if I am government, that would concern me.
Well, capital isn't about emotion. It's about calculating exactly what you've just said, where you're going to get the best return. And unfortunately, we've seen through the likes of Stephen Van Coller's testimony at the Zondo Commission, just how fraught dealing with government can be. And especially when it comes to IT, we know there's a big opportunity for e-services and making that delivery of service much more efficient, be it in licensing or at home affairs or wherever. But the private sector, to your point, is going to be reticent about engaging when there is that reputational risk. One hopes that the recent moves by the MPA and other signs to clear out the rot are the first steps. But I couldn't agree with you more, Grant. We need to be a little bit more decisive than we are right now. It's been a real pleasure chatting to you, though. We have to leave it there. And good luck in taking Data into this new future. And thanks for sharing all of the insights into how you're managing this cultural reset through a pandemic. Not the easiest job in the world. Take care.
Certainly not. Thank you very much, Michael. Keep well.
That was Grant Bodley, CEO of Dimension Data, with us here on Business Talk on Business Tech.